Hello students, once again I welcome you all to this virtual learning online platform. Presently we are dealing with ambiguity in English. Now in this class, I would like to discuss structural ambiguity in particular. So friends, let us proceed with structural ambiguity in English. As you know very well, structural ambiguity arises out of the interpretation of a sentence based on its structural elements. When a sentence or a clause can be interpreted in more than one way, and that actually leads to different meanings based on the construction, such kind of ambiguity is called structural ambiguity. The ambiguity or the confusion that comes from the way the sentence is actually put together. And when you go through a sentence, you will find that there is an order of different words. So here, our focus is more on the order of different words in the grammatical point of view, in the structural point of view. In the structural ambiguity, we are not more concerned with the definition of various words, the meanings of various words. But moreover, our focus is on the structural aspect of a sentence. So let us proceed with a few examples that will definitely clarify certain doubts in your minds. So as I said, now I'm going to talk on how the ambiguity arises out of the structural interpretation of a sentence. In a sentence, you have a subject, verb, then depending on the need of a sentence, you have an object or a complement or an adverbial. In general, you call it the 5 basic elements of a sentence. As I discussed before, a structural ambiguity arises out of the structural interpretation of a sentence. More particularly, you will focus on the third element of a sentence, like object, complement, and an adverbial. As you know, there are two types of objects. One is direct object and another is indirect object. You have two types of complements, subject complement and object complement. When you try to analyze the stance of either object or the complement, you will find that the meaning is being changed. Similarly, whatever formation of a sentence that you get, you find a specific order of words. If you have a simple sentence, it will have a subject and a predicate. As far as the predicate is concerned, you have the verb or the verb phrase, and as needed, you will have object, complement, or an adverbial. The analysis and structural interpretation of all these 5 elements actually decide the meaning of a sentence. Let us look at an example here. The boy in the car requires a wash. The sentence is really very humorous. Immediately, we get double meanings in our mind, and we keep thinking whether the boy requires a wash or the car requires a wash. And these are the two very obvious meanings of this sentence. But now you see, in the structural point of view, the division of all these elements will decide the meaning. As far as the first interpretation is concerned, you have the boy in the car. This is a noun phrase functioning as subject of the sentence. Then requires is a verb with a S form, that is, the sentence is in simple present tense, functioning as verb. A wash is also a noun phrase functioning as an object. So you have a simple structure here, SVO. Now you see, when you combine the boy as a noun phrase and the adverbial in the car all together and call it a noun phrase functioning as a subject, the meaning of the sentence will be the boy who is inside the car requires a wash means the car requires a wash. Now you see here in the second interpretation of the same sentence, I am trying to separate all these elements of the sentence. The boy, noun phrase functioning as subject. In the car, which is also a kind of phrase that is specially, it is a prepositional phrase functioning as adverbial of place, requires as form of the base word require functioning as verb, and a wash is a noun phrase functioning as an object. Now you see here, the moment you segregate all these elements, the meaning will also change. The boy who is sitting in the car requires a wash. It means the boy requires a wash. So the minor change in the structural aspect can make a big difference in the meaning. Similarly, you have another sentence on your screen. I ran over the dog crossing the square. See, this is also a very humorous sentence. I ran over the dog crossing the square. Now the question is, who was crossing the square? In one case, I was crossing the square. In the another case, the dog was crossing the square. But the interpretation of the fourth element in the sentence will decide the meaning of the sentence. Now you see the first interpretation. I ran over the dog crossing the square. I, first person, singular number functioning as subject, ran over. This is a verb phrase. Then you have the dog, noun phrase functioning as an object, or since it is the only object that I can say functioning as the object. Then you have crossing the square. It's a non-finite clause functioning as, in this case, functioning as complement to subject. See here, when I am complementing to subject, it means I was crossing the square, and at that time I ran over the dog. So the meaning will be, I ran over the dog when I was crossing the square. Because the fourth element in the sentence, which is a non-finite ing clause, since it is a complement, but I called it a complement to subject. And that's why this meaning will be there. Now you try to interpret the same sentence in a different way. I ran over the dog crossing the square. I, first person singular number functioning as subject. Ran over is a verb phrase. The dog, noun phrase functioning as the object. Crossing the square, non-finite ing clause functioning as a complement here, but this time I am making it complement to object. Means who was crossing the square? The dog was crossing the square. The meaning will be, I ran over the dog when the dog was crossing the square. See, this is the beauty of the analysis of an ambiguous sentence. The moment you change the stance of the complement from subject to object, you get a different meaning, right? Now let us look at another sentence here on the screen. I once saw a deer riding my bicycle. I once saw a deer riding my bicycle. See, this is also a very, humorous sentence. In one case, I was riding my bicycle, I saw a deer. In the another case, I saw a deer and the deer was riding my bicycle. So these are the obvious two meanings of this sentence. Let us try to interpret in the structural point of view. Again, this will be a case of, the analysis of a complement functioning as subject and functioning as an object. I, first person singular number functioning as subject of the sentence. Once, this is the adverbial of frequency. Saw, V2, that is the verb of the sentence. A deer, noun phrase functioning as the object of the sentence. Riding my bicycle is a non-finite ing clause functioning as complement. But in the case of the first one, I am calling it complement to subject. Means, who was riding the bicycle? I was riding the bicycle. So the meaning will be, once I saw a deer when I was riding my bicycle. This is all clear here because here the complement is functioning as complement to subject. Now you have the interpretation of the same sentence in a different way. I once saw a deer riding my bicycle. I, first person singular number functioning as the subject of the sentence. Once, this is the adverbial. Saw, V2 of C functioning as verb of the sentence. A deer, noun phrase functioning as object of the sentence. Riding my bicycle is a non-finite ing clause functioning as a complement here, but this time I am calling it complement to object. It means, who was riding the bicycle? A deer was riding the bicycle. I know that it is ridiculous to see that a deer is going to ride a bicycle. It will never happen. But just for the sentence purpose, I have written like this. So the meaning will be, I once saw a deer when the deer was riding my bicycle. So these are the two possible interpretations, structural interpretations, and the possible two ambiguous meanings as well. Now just look at another sentence on the screen. We are not teaching machines. We, first person plural number functioning as subject of the sentence. Are is the verb in the sentence. Not is a word of negation. Teaching machines is a complement. And in this case, I am calling it complement to subject. Okay. So you have, we are not teaching machines. Okay. The meaning will be, we are not teaching machines means we are the human beings. Okay. Are we the machines? Are we the robots? We are not robots. We are not machines. Especially, we are not teaching machines, we are the human beings. When you call it a complement to subject, in this case, we is functioning as subject, as you know, are is functioning as the main verb in the sentence. And when the auxiliaries like am, is, are, was, were coming alone and functioning as the main verb, usually the third element is complement to subject. So in this case, teaching machines, which is a noun phrase here, combined together, teaching machines. Okay, we are not robots. Okay, we are not machines. We are not teaching machines. Okay, we are not computers. We are not the LMS, learning management systems, which are operated by the computer. We are the human beings. We are not teaching machines. So the meaning will be, we are not teaching machines, or we are not robots. Moreover, we are the human beings, not the machines. This is the meaning. Now you have the interpretation of the same sentence with a different structure. We, first person, plural number, functioning as subject, are not teaching. Now you see here, I made it a verb phrase. Are functioning as auxiliary here. Teach is the main verb. Ing is the progressive form. Not is a word of negation. So are teaching or are not teaching altogether, it has become a verb phrase. Machines, I made it an object now. You can have a passive voice with the help of the object. Machines are not being taught by us. It means definitely the third element that I claimed, machines, is definitely an object. So here, the moment I made it an object, the meaning will change. What will be the meaning now? We are not teaching machines as a subject. It means, what are we doing now? We may be teaching English, we may be teaching Hindi, we may be teaching mathematics, we may be teaching any other subject. But as a subject, we are not teaching machines. Right? So we are not teaching machines as a subject, machines as a subject. If you go to engineering or any technological college, okay, they have the fundamentals of machine and the kind of principles and operations, as far as machines as a subject is concerned. So here, the meaning is, we are not teaching machines as a subject. So this is how, whenever the structural changes, are taking place, the meaning of the sentence will change. Look at another sentence on the screen. We wanted a nurse for a baby about 20 years old. See how humorous the sentence is. Whether you want a nurse who is at the age of 20, or else you have somebody called baby at home, and the baby's age is around 20. These are the two multiple meanings that you are getting. Now try to understand in the structural point of view. The kind of changes that you made, automatically the meaning will also change. We wanted a nurse for a baby about 20 years old. We, first person, plural number, functioning as subject of the sentence. Wanted, want is the base form, wanted, V2, past form, functioning as a verb. A nurse, noun phrase, functioning as the object. For a baby, it is a complement to subject because the baby belongs to we. That's why I made it a complement here, and that to complement to subject. Now you see the change here. About 20 years old, I am calling it complement to object. So whose age is going to be 20 years old? A nurse. It means we want a young nurse, right? So the meaning will be, we wanted a nurse for a baby. The nurse is expected to be around 20 years. That's all. See the structural interpretation in the second case. We wanted a nurse. We First person, plural number, functioning as subject. Wanted, verb. A nurse, object. For a baby about 20 years old, I just combined it all together and called it a complement to object altogether, right? Because we have a baby at home, the baby's age is around 20 years old, and we need a nurse for the baby. So whose age is 20 years now? The baby's age is 20 years old. And we need a person to look after the baby who is at the age of 20 years. So we may have a nurse, maybe old or young. Whosoever available, we will hire. So the meaning will be, we wanted a nurse for a baby and the baby's age is around 20 years old. So these are the two possible interpretations of a sentence. Let us look at another sentence here on the screen. Police help dog bite victim. See, this is also a very humorous sentence. Whether the police help the victim, okay, or the police help the dog. These are the two probable meanings that you can derive from the sentence. Let us look at it in the structural point of view. Police, as you know, it's a collective noun functioning as subject of the sentence. Helped, verb. Dog bite victim is altogether, okay, I'm calling it a noun phrase functioning as object of the sentence. Right? The meaning will be, the police help the victims who are bitten by dog. It means, who are the victims? The victims are the people, those who are bitten by dog. And all these victims are being helped out by the police. This is the meaning. When you call it SVO structure, that is police, subject, helped, verb, dog bite victim, all together functioning as object. Dog bite victim were helped by police. This is the passive voice. Then you can accept it as an object. But now you see the minor change that is taking place in the respect of the structure of the sentence. Police, subject, helped, verb, dog, I'm going to isolate it, separate it. I'll call it an object, right? Bite victim, I'll make it complement to subject. Okay. So the meaning will be, the police helped the dog, but unfortunately you see now what happened. The police helped the dog and the police bite the victims means troubled the victims. See the controversy. People are not important. Dog is more important. So the police helped the dog. And who are being in trouble? The victims are in trouble. Instead of helping the human beings, okay, probably they had a different perspective. They helped the dog, but they put the victims into trouble. And that's why this way you can say, this bite victim is a phrase functioning as complement to subject. Police bite victim. It means the police put the victims into trouble, but they helped the dog. So this is how this interpretation is possible. Now you see one more, sentence on your screen. He found a dog in the car which was brown in color. Okay. He found a dog in the car which was brown in color. It means we are talking about a car, we are talking about a dog. Whether the dog is in brown color or the car is in brown color. These are the two, ideas which are lingering into our mind. Let us try to understand in the structural point of view. He, third person, singular number functioning as subject, found, V2, verb, a dog, noun phrase functioning as the object of the sentence. Now you see, I am putting everything together. In the car which was brown in color, I am calling it an adverbial of place. He found a dog. Where? In the car, which was brown in color. So this is functioning as adverbial of place. The meaning will be, he found a dog in the car and the car was brown in color. What was brown here? The car was brown in color. But now you see, the moment you change the structural analysis, the meaning will also change. He found a dog in the car which was brown in color. Now I am going to separate all these elements. You have all 5 basic elements in the sentence. Subject, verb, object, complement, adverbial. All 5 basic elements are there. He, third person singular number, functioning as subject. Found, V2, functioning as verb. A dog, noun phrase, functioning as an object. In the car, adverbial of place. Prepositional phrase, functioning as adverbial of place. Which was brown in color. This is a complement. Okay. This is a complement functioning as complement to object. It means a dog is now related to the color, that is brown color. Okay, so car is not brown in color. The dog is going to be brown in color. So the meaning will be, he found a dog in the car and the dog was brown in color. So this is the possible meaning of this particular sentence. Then you have one more sentence on the screen. The cat attacked the bird that belongs to me. See here, the doubts are there in mind whether the cat belongs to me or the bird belongs to me. These are the 2 possible meanings now. Let us look at it in the structural point of view. The moment you change the stance of the complement, meaning will also change. The cat, noun phrase, functioning as subject. Attacked, V2, functioning as verb. The bird, noun phrase, functioning as object. That belongs to me is a that clause. Now you see, the moment you change the stance of the complement, in the first case you make it complement to subject. In the second case you make it complement to object. Accordingly, the meaning will change. When I call that belongs to me as a complement to subject, it means the cat belongs to me. The cat attacked the bird and the cat belongs to me. Got it? It means the cat that belonged to me attacked the bird. This is the meaning. Now you see, in the respect of the same sentence, when you interpret it differently, the cat attacked the bird that belongs to me. In this case, the cat functioning as subject, attacked, V2, functioning as verb, the bird, noun phrase, functioning as an object, that belongs to me. Now in this case, I am making it object complement. It means this that clause is going to function as complement to object. It means the bird belongs to me. The cat that attacked the bird, that the bird belongs to me. So this is how these are the 2 possible meanings of a sentence. So these are the few sentences, especially the ambiguous sentences, and we can have the structural analysis of each of the sentences in different ways. And of course, we get different meanings as well. So thank you very much.